named Chris. Let's see. Come on. Chris a female? Nope. Chris is a male with shades on.
Pickup.
No problem. Hey, Chris, if you don't mind, could you put backpacks on the floor?
Yeah, sure.
I appreciate it. I try to protect my seats, man.
Good. I understand.
How was your flight?
Other than the typical delay into Dallas, not too bad.
Yeah.
I flew this way I've every month this year.
Oh, okay.
And I don't think I've had one that's been on time.
You flew American?
Yeah.
American sucks, man.
Yeah, like this time, I mean, I caught like all the spring thunderstorms because I did a lot of work in Oregon and Washington State, and I live in Georgia, so I would come here for that connection and the thunderstorms in the spring every time. But then this time they couldn't find the pilot. I guess the pilot didn't have the required rest, so they had to get a new pilot, and they couldn't find one.
Oh, wow.
So I guess they called that backup guy. It took them a few hours.
So when you come, you always stay at the Anatole?
No. Usually I just come through here on my way to the Northwest. We're having a conference here. So
okay.
And it's at that hotel, so that's my first time.
What industry?
It's U.S. Department of Energy.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So, yeah. And it's our technology conference, so I guess tech industry.
Back in the day, I used to do a lot of business with the state.
Okay.
And yeah, I used to go to meetings with senators and mayors and state representatives and go down to the state capitol, help change laws and procedures with small businesses.
Okay.
And I've never voted in my life. The mayor of Dallas, she asked me, she said, Gary, what political party you belong to? I said, none.
None.
And she goes, none? I'm like, yeah, I've never voted in my life. She said, but you have all these political connections. I said, yeah, I'm just here for the money. I don't care about the other crap.
Yeah.
Man.
I'm kind of with you on politics.
So I'm about to ask you, what you think of all this political crap that's,
so I was in the Army for 10 years.
Okay.
I've been out for 7.
Gotcha.
And I just kind of feel like no matter what political party people belong to, it ultimately, at the end of the day, it's kind of funny. Okay, so my kids, they're 10 and 7. Boys.
Yeah.
They're both huge sports fans.
Yeah.
My 10, we're watching the Olympic basketball today.
Chris, how old are you, like 37?
Yeah, 37. You called it.
Really?
Yep, exactly right. Exactly. So we're watching the game.
Yeah.
And my 10-year-old's cheering. And when Serbia's winning early on, my little guy's cheering for Serbia. My wife's cheering for Serbia.
Yeah.
And he's doing it just because he wants to argue with his brother, right? I kind of feel like that's how politics is.
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
When you look at like that two-party system, there's no way all the people in one party all think the same way, and all the people in the other party just think the opposite way. You know what I mean? I just kind of feel like a lot of those folks seem to be in it for themselves.
So check this out. So you know there was a third party, right? Back in the 70s.
I've heard of it.
You remember the name of it?
No.
It was called the Native American Party.
Yeah, I heard of that. Yeah.
But it was started in the 1800s by an organization called the Know Nothings.
I've heard of that too.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people don't know that. And when I talk to people, see, I mean, I'm a history buff, so I don't watch television. I study land records, military records, census records, National Archives, vital statistics, Smithsonian records, anthropology, and I do genealogy as a hobby. I've been doing it for 20 years.
Interesting.
And I picked it up over a hobby when I started doing research on my family, my grandparents and everything. So it just drove me down a rabbit hole following my family's history, and it opened my eyes to a lot of stuff, bro. I mean, it changed my life, man. Changed my life, and it changed the way I thought about things, because I knew my family's history. I know where they came from, and dude, I was finding like land records, Indian records. And my grandparents owned a plantation in like East Texas. And we still own our land today, right? So I used to ask my dad, I said, what did granddaddy and them get all this land from? And he was like, my dad 84. He said, Gary, I don't remember where dad and them got this land, but all I know is they never worked for nobody in their life. They always worked for themselves. And I said, you don't remember where they got it from? He goes, no. And so when I started doing research on my grandparents, I found out my grandmother was Ananawiya, Cherokee, and my grandfather was Creek in Choctaw. And so I said, Dad, man, your parents were Indians, man. And he said, I remember Mama used to say something about us being Indians, but they never talked about it. And I was like, they never talked about like where they came from or whatever. If they came from Africa or not. He said, no. He said, I didn't start hearing about Africa until like the 80s.
Wow.
And I said, the 80s? He goes, yeah, they never talked about no Africa or nothing like that. And so, I mean, that's when I started finding these records, Chickasaw records and Creek Indian records. Man, it was, I mean, I'm going back to the late 1500s.
Wow.
And I'm like, Then I start finding these Indian records. I start studying land records. I say, okay, now I understand what happened. There wasn't no slavery crap. There wasn't no African Americans coming over here from no slavery, man. It's crazy. Like, did you know the term African American was only created in 1988?
I did not.
Just recently, man. Yes.
Wow.
It's like it's a misnomer. It's a made up term. Now, when I talk to Native Americans, I had a Native American that I gave a ride to one day, and he got upset that I wear a Cleveland Indian hat. He said my hat offended him, and I said, why? He said, because I'm Navajo Indian. And I said, how did you become an Indian? He goes, what do you mean? I said, you do know what Indian means, right? He goes, yeah, it means Native American. I said, no, that's not what it means, man. It's not. I'm like, nope. I said, Native just became popular in the 70s because it was the third largest political party in the United States. And Native just means anyone born here on the land.
Right.
It doesn't mean you originated here. And he goes, but it was because Christopher Columbus thought he was in India. That's why he named him. I was like, no. India didn't become India till 1947. It was called Hindustan.
That's right.
And he was like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, Indian actually means dark skin. It derives from the word indigo, which means dark of hue.
Huh. I didn't know that.
And he's like, I said, so, he said, well, I grew up on a reservation, so that makes me Indian. I said, that doesn't make you Indian, man. I said, do you know what a reservation is? He goes, yeah, it was for the placement of Indians. I said, no, it wasn't. It was actually the placement for the position for non-Americans. And he goes, non-Americans? I'm like, yeah. He said, well, I don't believe that. I said, okay, well, pull out your phone. I said, Google it. Google the definition of a reservation. I said, how dare you? So he's like in his 40s, mid 40s. He pulls out his phone and he's looking it up. He's looking at it. And I said, so what it say? It says the placement for the position for non-Americans. I said, so how did you become an Indian? Because it clearly says non-Americans. I said, how could Native Americans look Mexican? They look Asian, and they look European. When on every part of this planet, Aboriginal people always normally are dark-skinned people.
Yeah.
I said, so how did y'all become so diverse here? What happened to the dark-skinned Aboriginal people? He was like, he didn't know what to say. He was like, well, I said, now, were they all killed? Or were they just reclassified to something else? What's most likely to have happened? I said, because African Americans are the only people on this land that's had their identity changed more than 4 or 5 times in the last 100 years. Went from Indian to colored to Negro to black to African American. Why did they have to keep changing their identity?
Change that identity?
The system.
Just the system?
Yeah. Because, see, they didn't want African Americans to get any benefits from the land, so they reclassified them and removed their history from the land. And people were paying $5 to be listed as Indians on the United States Dog Roads Commission in the late 1800s. All this is all documented.
Yeah.
Right? So all Indians that live off the reservation were reclassified to Negroes. It's in the Library of Congress in black and white. So all this crap about black this is a social propaganda. That's all it is. And they put that in the school system about slavery and stuff like that to indoctrinate the kids. When they grow up, they wouldn't know who they are. Because think about this. Ships, it wasn't no ships back then like in the 1600s. Those were sailboats or wherries or whatever you want to call them. You can't cross no kind of freaking Atlantic Ocean in those little sailboats with thousands of people on them. Real ships didn't start having engines until the late 1859. Around that time, that's when they could carry a lot of people in cargo. And those people weren't coming from Africa, they were coming from Europe by the millions. Because Europeans were being exiled from Europe. They were sent here as punishment to work for indentured servitude. That's what employment means. It means indentured servitude. After the Civil War, slavery transitioned into employment. The word plantation derived from the word planters. Planters were the Aboriginal people here, like my grandparents that knew how to grow crops. Then it became a plantation. Whites didn't start owning plantations until much later. Negroes owned plantations first because they were the people who are already here occupying the land.
Right.
Africans couldn't come here and know how to farm land. You can't even grow stuff in Africa like that by the million. You know, they can't even feed their population now because they don't have the natural resources of water to sustain crops like that. It's too dry over there.
Makes sense.
And people like, oh, you see, I was telling this African guy, I said, dude, I think he's from Nigeria. He was an attorney. And he was talking about Africa is the motherland. I said, no, it's not. The oldest trees on the planet are in California. The California redwoods. Hello? And he's like, oh my God, Gary, oh my God, you know what you're talking about. I said, dude, you from Nigeria. Your country was only created in 1907. It became independent in 1960. I said, your family probably didn't even come to America until the 60s, right? And he goes, how do you know that?
That's actually my family came to America in the 70s.
Oh, okay.
From Poland.
Poland, yeah.
And you know, it's kind of interesting. I mean, I don't know. So my family.
They kept their last name, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. My last name translates to wolf.
Yeah.
But it's pronounced Wilk in Polish.
Okay.
So my dad came over when he was 17, and the rest of his he had an uncle in New Jersey. The rest of his family stayed in Poland.
Yeah.
But my kids now, it's interesting because they're getting to the age, especially my 10-year-old, you know, where they're starting to ask more questions.
Yeah.
And my mom had passed away a couple of years ago, and I was going through a lot of like her, you know, like their records.
Yeah.
Helping my dad with like his financial matters and all that. And I found like my great grandfather, you know, he was killed in the Battle of Arnhem in World War II.
Gotcha.
You know, my sons, you know, are starting to ask me a lot of questions about the Army. You know, they're interested. So I shared with them some of that. You know, when we found like some correspondence. You know, with, like he's buried at I think there's a cemetery in Arnhem.
Yeah.
He was killed in the Battle of Arnhem. You know, talking about like where his final resting place is.
Okay.
But it was really interesting. You know, because I've never really been like much into the family history stuff.
Yeah.
I really started to dig into it a couple of years ago. Not to the level, you know, of that you studied and stuff. It was kind of interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it's you know, like when I talk to people, it's fascinating to me how much people don't know, man. You know, and it's like, and it, you know, it gets kind of like aggravating sometimes when people don't understand real history and they looking at you like, no, but you're African. I'm like, dude, I'm not African. I mean, are the people in Australia, do they call themselves African Americans? I mean, African Australians, no, they are Aboriginal people of that land.
Anyone can get it, yeah. You're rocking with the man with the plan. When you're rocking with the hustle man.
Come on, keep walking.
Go home. No.
I'll do it.